Hey, this pressure cooker recipe is fast and easy, and from now on you'll have zero problems with overcooked, undercooked, or crunchy noodles. Just use this recipe. It's worth sticking around until the end for. But before we get into today's recipe, if you're a fan of easy, delicious recipes that you can make yourself even as a beginner, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, and even 5 times per week. If that's interesting to you, please subscribe to this channel and be sure to click the little bell so that when we upload new videos, they'll appear on your YouTube homepage. All right, let's get into today's recipe. So first, we're going to start with 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. It's fine to use chicken breast. Just make sure that it's a boneless, skinless breast, but really thighs are what you need, because thighs are more juicy, they're more forgiving, they're more flavorful, especially if you're a beginner. Use thighs. They have a lot of flavor and you'll be glad you did. I showed a picture at the very beginning of this recipe of all the things you need for this recipe, so go ahead and get those out. Now, once you have your chicken all cut up into bite-sized pieces, you are going to put a little oil in your pan. Here I'm putting about 2 tablespoons of oil. That's just vegetable oil. And I'm going to let it heat for a couple of minutes to get it good and hot. If you are using an Instant Pot, you can just use your browning function for this. So let your pot get hot and then add your chicken pieces all at once, and you're going to cook them for about 3 minutes to get them. You'll see they're not completely cooked through at the end of 3 minutes, but they're not far from being finished. We're also going to add during this stage some salt and pepper. I'm adding about a teaspoon of salt, about a half a teaspoon of pepper. We're going to add some garlic powder, a teaspoon, and about about 2 teaspoons of garlic powder and a teaspoon of onion powder. Now here's a little tip. You can see that my chicken is kind of stuck to the bottom there. Don't worry about it. When it gets closer to being done, it will release from the bottom. That's not a problem. So don't spend a lot of time scraping and scratching and trying to get that off of there. It's no problem at all. Now here in a second, I'm going to speed the video up because nobody cares about just watching chicken fry in a pan. That's what's happening. And you can see it's starting to unstick there. Okay, so once the chicken's kind of browned, you can see most of the pieces are getting browned through there. It's been about 3 minutes. We're going to add the other ingredients for the recipe, and that's going to be 2 tablespoons of butter, 4 ounces of cream cheese, or half of a block. We're going to add 3/4 of a cup of water, and here's a pro tip. If you really want to add a lot of flavor, add chicken stock instead of water. That will bump up the flavor even more. We're going to add half a cup of Parmesan cheese and a cup of milk. I'm using Prego Alfredo sauce here. You're going to add 1 jar of that. It's 22 ounces, whatever brand you want to use, but the Prego really tastes pretty darn good. So that was what I was putting in there. There goes my 3/4 of a cup of water. Again, use broth if you want to add a lot of flavor. Anyway, we're going to get all those items I just talked about added into the pot, and then we're going to add 12 ounces of penne pasta. That's a little short tube. You can really use any kind of dried pasta you want, as long as it is a smaller pasta like that. Don't add spaghetti or fettuccine, because those tend to stick, they clump, they're harder to make in a pressure cooker. So that's not the traditional style of Alfredo that you would normally do, but it's what works best in a pressure cooker. And honestly, it tastes the same, so no worries. Once you get all those ingredients added, you're going to stir it really well to make sure everything's coating the pasta. Pasta is a little bit trickier than a lot of other pressure cooker recipes because it kind of wants to stick. If you have a larger pressure cooker, like a 6-quart or greater, you are going to need to add some extra milk and water, more liquid. The main point being that you want the pasta covered with liquid. If it's not covered, it will be crunchy, it won't be done all the way, it's just not going to be as good. So make sure you do that. You can also use, if you don't have milk, these are hard times. I've been to the store some over the last year and a half where everything hasn't been available. You can use evaporated milk instead of whole milk. You can use a milk substitute like an almond milk or an oat milk here. That is not going to matter as much. For the cream cheese, you can use the Neuchâtel, is that how you say it? Or one of the lower fat cream cheeses. That'll work just fine. You can see I'm giving it a good stir here, getting everything mixed in, making sure those noodles are really coated. That's the important part. Then I'm going to put my pressure cooker lid on, and I am going to bring it to full pressure, and I'm going to let that stay at full pressure for 6 minutes. Not 7, not 5, 6 minutes. So on mine, it's a stovetop pressure cooker, and how I know it's at full pressure is when the little red button pops up, just like that. After 5 minutes of full pressure cooking, I'm going to let it release naturally for 5 minutes, and then that's manually releasing the pressure on my pressure cooker. If you have an Instant Pot, it will make a similar sound, and there's a little valve you release for that on an Instant Pot. So do that, let the pressure completely release before you try to take the lid off, and then once you take the lid off, give it a good stir. And if you want to add some frozen peas or some small diced frozen carrots, or some pre-cooked broccoli or cauliflower or chives or spinach, any of those vegetables would be great in here and add some lovely color. I've even added sun-dried tomatoes in the past. All delicious. So there, when my little button goes down, I know the pressure's completely released. And now, I'm sorry I didn't know that I was going to be visible in this shot. I'm in my jammies. You can see mine stuck a little bit, and I'm going to tell you why it did. Because when I was cooking it, I let the pressure get a little too high, and it started venting steam. But it still was delicious. It just wanted to stick a tiny little bit. There's what it looks like. That's more than enough to feed 4 people, a great big serving. It probably feeds 6, really. But anyway, you enjoy that. Come visit me at loavesandishes.net for the full recipe with instructions and tips and tricks and measurements, and I'll see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell. Hey, this is Wendy. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you'll join Sarah and I on our mother-daughter adventures in takeout. You can find Dorks with Sports wherever you download podcasts or at dorkswithsports.com.